Hi guys, it's Molly from Moth in the Studio, and today we are going to discuss the most optional of college field trips, museums. If you are currently in or have ever been to art school, you've probably had at least one class where they've either required or given extra credit for going to a museum and either writing or sketching about one of the pieces there. From my experience, I always found these trips pretty boring, usually because they take me way out of my way and I'd have to spend a couple hours there, and I was generally just not super enthusiastic about these trips. But now that I'm out of school, I have a lot more appreciation for museums, especially since I actually worked at one. I worked security for an art museum for several months, and I used a lot of that time to really study the paintings and even just passively picking stuff up that I didn't even think about. So I wanted to kind of pass along some of the things that I learned and maybe some things that could help you too. And in the background of this video, I will be working on a piece that is based off of some of the techniques and things that I've learned while working at the museum. So you can kind of get to see how that works in action. So yeah. Okay, so starting off, you may be wondering, if the whole point of going to a museum is looking at old paintings, then why can't I just look it up online and stay home? Well, you can, but trust me, you are not going to get the same level of detail out of a Google image. Looking at a painting up close, you can catch details that you might not have seen online, like the way that muscles in the body are poised, or how the paint is layered to create shading for a specific piece. One of my favorite things to study is light and shadow. A lot of classical paintings are masterful with their use of it, and that is something that's very important to understand if you want to get into things like environment design, storyboarding, or any kind of story-based art. How you play with light and shadow really affects how your audience views a piece of art, so if you really want to get a certain emotion out of them, that's another really good thing to study. Another great detail to focus on is drapery, because drawing clothing on characters can be really difficult sometimes, and there are lots of good examples on how artists have sort of faked good drapery and also how they've gone absolutely ham with it and went super crazy detailed with it. Being able to break it down into base shapes is one of the more helpful tips I can think of when studying these techniques. The second piece of advice I have is drawing the same piece multiple times. While at first it may be tempting to go around sketching multiple different pieces and calling it a day, studying the same piece and trying to draw it over and over again is not as insane as it sounds. Sometimes I would spend the better part of an hour just redrawing a specific hand pose I liked, and trying to refine it and get something better each time. You'll not only gain muscle memory for drawing anatomy, but you'll also probably start picking up on what the artist was doing to achieve a certain look. Even if your preferred style is more in the realm of cartoon, you can still learn a lot from these paintings, especially ones with more dynamic poses. As my teachers once told me, you have to learn how the human form works before you can break it. And essentially this exercise in museum drawing is very similar to how painters used to study masterworks to get better at their own craft. So it's a tradition that's been ongoing for centuries. Another thing I thought was helpful was using studying as a way to fight art block and frustration with my current skill set. It can sometimes be hard to come up with ideas for things to sketch, but studying forces you to use your time wisely and effectively so you can better visualize your ideas. A challenge I recommend is trying to sketch out a concept you've been struggling with, be it a character design, scene, or what have you. Then after studying paintings you think will benefit you the most for that specific idea, try sketching it out again to see if you've changed your approach to it. Another thing I personally love about looking at paintings in a museum, especially if you've had to look at the same paintings over and over again week after week, is that you start to notice little flaws. And that's totally okay. I think as artists, we tend to beat ourselves up over our own art because we don't think we're good enough and we like to obsess over our mistakes instead of appreciating the good things about our art. But I have observed certain paintings in the museum that I absolutely adore for months before realizing, hey, her head is too big in proportion to her foot. Or wait, that arm is too short in comparison to the body. If you put enough care and love into your work, then people will overlook the small flaws because of all the good things that make up for one bad. Sure, I noticed it after studying for way longer than the average person spends in a museum. But does that diminish how I feel about these works of art? No. I actually feel more of a connection because I understand the struggle, especially on a larger canvas. Not to mention, some of these artists had been working professionally for 20 plus years, and they still made small mistakes. So that should absolutely be some sort of comfort. Now, I know most museums aren't free and require paid admission to get in, so going to them on a weekly basis may not be accessible to everyone. However, if you're a college student, you often have free membership access to your local museums and can get in as often as you like. If you're not in college, perhaps consider taking a museum position as a summer job. Like I mentioned before, I was on the security team for an art museum for several months, and my job was to rove the galleries and make sure that patrons weren't touching the artwork. On slower days, it was possible to get a lot of free sketching done, as I'd bring a small pocket sketchbook I could just take out whenever I was in the mood to draw. Plus, I got paid for it. Finally, I believe some states offer a lower price admission voucher to lower income families, though you would have to do some research into that wherever you live to see if that would be an option for you. You're welcome to take this advice with a grain of salt. I have my BFA in drawing and illustration, and I am still learning so much about how to make good art. These are just some of the little bits that I picked up over time. And if they're helpful to you, then that's cool too. I hope it at least helped you and maybe convinced you to check out your local museum. Because sometimes they do have really cool things that might be able to inspire you, or at least get you back into the drawing mood. Feel free to leave any suggestions or questions in the comments, as long as they're nice. And please tell me what you thought about the practice piece that I made for this video. I've thought about maybe making some prints for it in the future, maybe if I do conventions. So it'd be helpful to know how people like it. But as per usual, if you liked this video, please leave it a like, and subscribe if you want to. I'm doing everything I can to try to help this channel to grow, and it's been a lot. I've actually been going through a little bit of burnout lately, which is why I haven't been posting videos as frequently. But I'm trying to get back into it, and I'm trying to still take things at my own pace so that I can conserve my creativity and actually make myself want to make more art for the channel. So, If you would like to contribute to helping me with my sanity, spreading the word about this channel is the best way to do so. So, without further ado, until next time. Ahem. Pig here with a small announcement. The Moth Shop, as well as the Moth in the Studio website, are going to be opening fairly soon. So, if you're interested in buying any original prints or requesting commission services, keep an eye out on the social medias linked below in this video. And if you are not following them already, well, you should be. Well, that's all I'm supposed to say here. I was promised food, so that's the only reason I'm doing this segment.
With a minor scale, a high and a piccolo and a cane. Made my honey say, I gave her a pain, a high